Hey guys, Dr. Dex here. Today I want to show you how we're dealing with an area where we have a deck and there's some siding that is too low to our ledger board, and we want to cut it away so that our deck boards will be able to slide behind here. So we're going to add some waterproof membrane tape to this and probably some metal flashing, although we don't have that here right now. We can get up to the step of putting in the waterproof membrane tape, and then we'll go from there. So the first thing I have to do is I have to justify elevation, which is really easy for me to do because our ledger board is all the way up to the bottom of the siding. So the decking material that we're using is TimberTech AZEK, and so that decking is 1 inch thick. So I'm going to cut my line 1 1/8 inches to 1 1/4 inches above the height of this. That way my decking will slide underneath here, and I have a little bit of wiggle room for drainage, caulking, all that stuff. There's nothing worse than when you're building a deck and you're trying to install deck boards and you have to try to stuff them into underneath the siding. So we're going to try to avoid that by making sure we just have a little bit of extra space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my cut over here by this trim board, and I'm going to cut 1 1/8 inches up. I might hit a nail. So sometimes it's just wise to try and get rid of the path, anything that might be in your path. Right now, you can always put that nail back in later, and they're not real big anyway, so I see one right here. And sometimes nails can be really tricky to get out of siding. It's really hard to pull these out. You can see if I give it a little tap, it kind of exposes it, and then I'm going to give it a little pressure in while I try to push. Like so, and then a little bit of touch-up paint, and that'll look all right. This nail is a little higher, so I'm not going to try to cut that right now. I'll wait until I get my 1 1/8 inches height out of here, and then it'll be easy to get that nail out. So now that I have a clear path, I'm going to start with a little bit deeper cut over here, and then I'm going to adjust it. Once I get past this point and my saw can lay flat, I'm going to adjust it so that I don't cut too deep through this piece of siding. The siding, if I measure one level up, is 3/4 of an inch thick. So I'll probably set my depth of my blade to 7/8 after I get through this piece here. Also, I'm going to set my depth for 1 1/8 inches. I'm going to see, this is 1 1/8 inches. This board here is 1 1/8 inches thick. So I'm going to set my blade for 1 1/8 inches so I don't cut too deep through this as well, because I'm not sure if there's concrete behind here or if there's wood behind here 1 inch up, because this was a cement wall. This is a cement stub wall behind these two boards here. We had to cement concrete anchor our ledger, and then we screwed this piece to our ledger, but we were attaching all that to concrete. All right, I've gotten past the edge of the trim. So I'm glad that I pulled this nail out of the siding, because you can see I would have ran right through it and would have trashed my really nice blade. So I'm glad I took the time to take those out before I started cutting. So now I've reset the depth of my saw. Since I'm past this point right now, I can make that cut and continue on this way. So now I have this cut. I'm going to try to remove this, but I'm going to go grab an oscillating tool really quick to help me do that. All right, so now I'm going to take my oscillator tool and I'm going to make a few cuts in this so I can start removing the siding I just cut. Oh, and I ended up cutting through a nail I didn't see. All right. So now I can see that I have a little bit of OSB. So now what we're going to do is, once we get all of this area cut, we're going to make sure the siding is able to pull away. We're going to G-tape this for now, and then I'll put some metal L flashing underneath here once I get it, because I don't have any here today, to protect any moisture from going back behind here. A couple other tools that we use when we're working on siding and we're trying to preserve the siding, or we're having a hard time getting some nails, or the nail heads, we can't pop them, or if we feel like we might destroy the side of the siding, this is a nail cutter that slips underneath the back side of a board, like you could pry this out and then slip this underneath and be able to clip the nails flush. Comes in really handy in those certain circumstances. Unfortunately, today, we already have our rim joists up, so we cannot use this tool to get underneath the siding. For this one, we'd have to probably cut this caulk line and then pull this out with a pry bar, and that's how we would get those nails out. But really a handy tool if you need it. Another tool that we use is called a Cuz-D straight flush saw, and this saw is set up so that it can cut basically a flush cut to the base of just about anything, and we don't use it very often, but when we do, it comes in really handy. All right, so if let's say I needed to make a cut right above the top of these two joists, right, these ledgers right here, then I can do that with this saw. I can set the depth. It has a trigger so you can pull the guard back. I think there's some tension, there we go. And then I can let her rip. I can adjust the depth just like it's traditional skill saw. It just has some really cool features that allow me to get a lot closer to my work surface and my flow. So again, another handy tool that I keep in my arsenal, Cuz-D. That's a C-U-Z-D, Cuz-D. All right, now we have our ledger here. We have our siding cut up to the height we need, and you can see it's loose, okay? That's actually a good thing because I'm gonna put some flashing up underneath here. But until I do that, I'm just gonna go ahead and apply some G-tape right to the top of this and to here, just to protect all this, because flashing's great, but it doesn't really waterproof things 100%. If moisture gets behind the flashing, it could get into this crack right here, and then water can get in between these two and permeate that and rot it out. Water might travel back behind here and try to either go up the wall or down the concrete and rot out the backside of this ledger as well. So instead of that, we're gonna tape it up so that that doesn't happen. So this is 4-inch tape. I have 3 inches here and an inch coming up the wall. So if I just lay this kind of right to the edge of this right here, then it should be about the right length. So that's what I'm gonna try and do. I'm gonna start by just tacking it kind of in place like so. Okay. The cool thing about G-tape is if you mess up, it doesn't adhere to itself. You can pull it away. So it doesn't, if you get a wrinkle or you don't like that, you can pull it back a little bit and fix that. And now I'm going to take this, I'm going to roll it under, like so. And then I'm going to tuck it up under here, like this. And then I'll come back and I'll cut this when I get my flashing, so that my flashing I can still fit underneath here. But right now I have this protective barrier, so any moisture that comes down the wall, gets in between the deck joists or the deck boards and sits on the joist won't permeate and go through into here. And that was our main thing, is to protect it from moisture. So now, and that way also when your screws go through, because we're going to use this as a fastener, a place to fasten our deck boards with, the screws are self-sealing. So when I put the screws through this, they'll self-seal as well. So that's a quick tip on how to keep your joist bay dry or your ledger up against the house. Use a little bit of G-tape and cut away some of your siding. If you're concerned about being able to get the flashing up in here, you could take a blade and you can kind of walk up in here and pre-cut this with your blade, like so, and then peel that away. And then when you go to open this up for your flashing, it's no problem. So if you like what you saw today, please click that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, I really appreciate it. Click that bell icon if you want to be notified every time we're putting out fresh content. Have a great day.